Peter McGuire, CEO of XM Australia. We had to drag him in off the beach for 5 minutes, given the 40-degree weather or whatever they seem to be having. They're getting their global warming down there in Oz. But Peter, your thoughts as we come to the end of the year here, and inevitably going into some disruptive trading, lighter volumes as usual as people take off for the festive period. Anything on your crystal ball that sees that could reverse this 7-week trend down on the oil markets?
Well, good afternoon, Sean, and greetings from Sydney to the other panelists, and welcome. I think this week, where we're looking, you've got to get through this week as far as data drops, Sean, and then that 60-hour window, we've got 60% of the globe's economy making rate policy decisions. So, and the rhetoric coming out of there, the likes of ECB, the Fed, and of course, Bank of England, BOJ, what's happening there. So the overall theme of building on what Mark mentioned, structural weakness, oversupply. Is it going to bounce? Yeah, it may. I think it's probably been oversold in a lot of ways. That US dollar's back at that nearly 104 level, the US dollar index, and currencies have been very, very choppy. So maybe it's a time that you might see a couple of bucks put on there. I was talking before the show started with Brian, and we were saying that gold this time last week was 21.44, and right now it's 2014. So it's down $130 in a week. The markets are incredibly volatile, Sean. And if I look at the Chinese market, that CSI 300 started the year 4,200. Right now it's at 3,400. So it's down 23%. So really it's a bear market territory. So where do we see growth, and where do we see the first quarter running? Going to be a very interesting first quarter.
Peter, the question as it's percolated through the few comments this morning, as it always does, China. We saw even through this somewhat unimpressive rebound from COVID, China still imported a lot of oil through the year, some record months, and yet built also a lot of storage with that oil. And I'm just wondering your outlook going forward. At these prices, the Chinese tend to like to buy, even if the consumption point isn't there. But in terms of just the discount, we're seeing the US also on the margins, nothing to scream about, but ultimately starting to refill their strategic petroleum reserves. Is this a window where China could keep buying because the price is right rather than demand is right?
Well, Sean, if you're looking back over the last 2 decades, that's certainly been their style and their strategy. Buy when prices are low, and they've done that with base metals so successfully. And don't take your eye off the ball as far as what they've done this year with iron ore. It's dramatic numbers what they've imported. So yes, it probably. I won't be surprised to see them really, kick the tin a little bit here and fill up as much as they possibly can, because internally the demand is very, very strong, and that's been demonstrated by their purchases. Exports are well down in the sense of finished goods because from weak demand, but that's just the story going across the globe as far as Chinese finished products. But the internal demand is strong. As far as the stock market's concerned, well, maybe it was overpriced, Sean, and they've stripped 20% out of it. But it seems to be very much, and this time of year leading into Lunar New Year is really when they start to rattle the cage a little bit as far as purchasing.
Peter, you mentioned in your opening comments what nearly seems like sweet nostalgia now, talking about interest rate cuts, the innocent world of many weeks, even only months ago, where interest rates seem to dominate. Are they still relevant, Peter? They're with a big bumper US jobs number on Friday. Yeah. Any other month you'd say up those rates. Your thoughts on the relevance as we get to the sort of the frothy end of this tightening cycle?
Well, exactly, Sean. And, everyone was tipping possibly a 150, maybe even, it could have been a 130,000 handle, and it came in just shy of 200 at 199 odd thousand. So where does Fed Chair Powell play with this? He's got relatively, very, very strong unemployment numbers. You've got the CPI that'll be released this week, running at around about 3.1, down from 3.2. So is he is it baked in you're going to see 5 rate cuts next year? Is it baked in that, you're going to see 25% pulled back in April or May? This is where the great dilemma is. No one's really sure, and the market's priced it in. So
we've been down that road before, haven't we? We've been down that road before, where the market priced in rate cuts far too early on some. Yes. I don't know what they're smoking, but ultimately, the U.S. economy would have to literally collapse to warrant the amount of interest rate cuts they're talking about.
Well, exactly right. And when you're looking at from a trading perspective, what's going to happen to US dollar if you don't see it? Because that'd underpin dollar, that'll crush a lot of these other commodities and currencies. So this is where traders are looking at in so many different lenses. If it doesn't happen, then what happens to US dollar? Pretty much it's going to be a move to the upside. What happens as far as US equities? And if that means probably you're off to the races with the US equities, if you don't see those rate cuts, or pardon me, if you do see the rate cuts, you'd be off to the races. And if you don't see the rate cuts, what happens as far as a handbrake to equities and all the other components that make up the economic cycle?
Peter, today is the last day of COP28. Tomorrow is ultimately the day in which the decision is supposedly announced. There's a lot of chatter going on and about whether it's phased down or phased out of fossil fuels will be included in the text. And interestingly, I wasn't quite aware, but one of the data points that came up during all this arguing in COP was that Australia is actually a bigger fossil fuel hydrocarbon producer apparently than most of us over here. But your thoughts on the outcome from COP28, whether it's phased down or phased out, does it matter? Could it have an impact on access to capital? Generally, your thoughts as a curtain raiser to that final decision tomorrow.
Well, Sean, there are so many components to this as far as perspectives, and there's different countries' views and different nations that have political parties that are aligned with these, with the rhetoric, and some that aren't. So that's, I think, not only a dilemma, but how that plays into the internal fabric as far as population, and then naturally moving up to the political side. And I think here, the big picture is going to be, should Trump be elected, how long is this going to be a success for in 24? And is it going to change the fabric of the whole argument? Because we understand his views as far as drill, baby, drill. So I think, to my point, I'm sitting here going, maybe it's going to be a little bit softer than what we thought that it could have been, going back, putting your mind back 20 years ago.
China has come out and says fossil fuels deal's not perfect, but a key to COP28 success. So it seems the Chinese have accepted that the words fossil fuels will be included in the document. Would that impact much of the rest of Asia?
Well, I think it would. But remember, China's got a different viewpoint as far as, how it, as from an electricity demand and from coal and coal-fired power plants and all of that. So I think, yes, China, they'll come under the umbrella of, China's views, Sean. I don't think that'll wash pretty much across the likes of Indonesia and moving up to the Philippines and so on. So, I think just watch this space and see how it unravels.
Brian Pieri in Colorado, thank you so much. Peter McGuire going back to the beach in Sydney, and Mark Oswald in London, not going to the beach, putting on his woolly jumper with all those nice colored Christmas trees on it. Listen, happy holidays to you all. Thank you so much for your contribution. We hope we will have you all at the table on January 10th for the World Global Energy Outlook Day, where we go around the world in 12 hours. Have a great festive season, guys. Thank you so much.
Merry
Thanks
Christmas.
so much.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Bye.